In an age saturated with information, yet starved of wisdom, an era of unprecedented connection, yet profound isolation, we find ourselves adrift in a sea of questions. What is the purpose of it all? Does life hold any inherent meaning? Or are we merely actors in a cosmic play without a script, destined to perform until the curtain falls on an indifferent stage? This gnawing uncertainty, this creeping suspicion that our grand narratives have crumbled, that our highest values have devalued themselves, this is the shadow of nihilism. It is not merely a philosophical concept, but a lived experience, a silent epidemic of the soul that whispers, "Nothing matters." But what if this whisper is not the end, but a beginning? What if, within the very heart of this existential void, lies the raw material for a profound recreation of self and meaning? For Friedrich Nietzsche, the 19th century German philosopher, this was not a hypothetical question, but the central challenge of his age, and indeed of ours. Nietzsche, often misunderstood, was not a prophet of despair, but a fierce critic of nihilism, a physician who diagnosed the spiritual malaise of Western civilization, offered a radical, exhilarating prescription's cure. He saw the coming storm, the death of God, and understood that humanity would be left without its traditional anchor, adrift in a universe stripped of its inherited certainties. This is an invitation to journey into the heart of Nietzsche's thought, to confront the abyss of nihilism, not with fear, but with courage. We will explore his profound diagnosis of this condition, dissecting how our most cherished beliefs inadvertently pave the way for a world devoid of intrinsic value. More importantly, we will uncover Nietzsche's audacious vision for overcoming this crisis, a path not of passive resignation, but of active creation, of forging a new sense of purpose and meaning from within. In a world that offers no guarantees, prepare to challenge your assumption, to embrace discomfort, and to discover how, in the ruins of old values, we might just find the strength to build something far more vital, more authentic, and more profoundly meaningful. This is not a story of finding meaning, but of creating it. This is Nietzsche's challenge to us all. To truly grasp Nietzsche's critique of nihilism, we must first understand his most famous and perhaps most misunderstood proclamation: God is dead. This was not a declaration of atheism, though Nietzsche himself was an atheist. Instead, it was a profound observation about the cultural and philosophical landscape of 19th century Europe, a seismic shift in the foundations of Western thought. For centuries, the concept of God and the transcendent values derived from it provided the bedrock for morality, meaning, and truth. It offered a cosmic order, a divine purpose, and an ultimate arbiter of good and evil. But as Nietzsche argued, the very forces that the West championed, scientific inquiry, rational thought, and even Christian morality's emphasis on truthfulness, inadvertently began to erode this foundation. The relentless pursuit of truth, a value inherited from Christianity itself, ultimately led to the questioning and eventual dismantling of the very truths it sought to uphold. Reason, once a tool for understanding God's creation, became a weapon against it, revealing a universe indifferent to human concerns, devoid of inherent meaning or preordained purpose. This collapse of transcendent values, this realization that the universe offers no ready-made meaning, is what Nietzsche termed nihilism. But he distinguished between two forms, passive and active nihilism. Passive nihilism is the exhaustion that follows the realization of meaninglessness. It's the weariness of spirit, the resignation that life is ultimately futile. In this state, individuals might seek solace in distractions, in endless consumption, in fleeting pleasures, or in the comforting embrace of mass ideologies that promise a return to certainty. It's a retreat from the harsh realities of a godless world, a desperate attempt to numb the pain of existential void. Think of the modern malaise, the pervasive sense of ennui, the search for external validation, the quiet desperation that often underlies our hyper-connected yet deeply disconnected lives. This passive form of nihilism for Nietzsche was a dangerous stagnation, a slow decay of the human spirit. However, Nietzsche also envisioned active nihilism. This is a more potent, even destructive force. It arises when the individual, confronted with the void, does not retreat, but instead embraces the destructive impulse. It's the recognition that old values are hollow and a powerful urge to tear them down, to clear the ground for something new. While seemingly destructive, active nihilism, in Nietzsche's view, holds the potential for transformation. It's the necessary demolition before reconstruction can begin. The consequences of unchecked nihilism, both passive and active, are dire. They manifest as moral relativism, where all values are considered equally valid or invalid, leading to a paralysis of will. They appear as an incessant pursuit of ephemeral pleasures, a desperate attempt to fill the void with transient sensation. They breed existential anxiety, depression, and a pervasive conformism, where individuals surrender their unique potential to the dictates of the herd, seeking safety in numbers rather than forging their own path. Nietzsche saw these symptoms not as isolated phenomena, but as the inevitable outcome of a culture that had lost grounding, a culture grappling with the profound implication of a world. He understood that this crisis, while terrifying, also presented an unprecedented opportunity for humanity to redefine it, to become the creators of its own values rather than mere inherited crumbling tradition. If the death of God plunged humanity into the abyss of nihilism, Nietzsche's response was not to lament the loss, but to celebrate the newfound freedom. For him, the collapse of old values was not an end, but a monumental opportunity for a radical revaluation, a chance to forge new meaning from the depths of our own being. At the heart of this revaluation lies one of Nietzsche's most potent and frequently misinterpreted concepts, the will to power, often mistakenly equated with brute force or domination over others. The will to power is, for Nietzsche, the fundamental driving force of all life. It is not merely a will to survive, but a will to grow, to overcome, to expand, to create, and to affirm oneself. It is the inherent impulse within every living thing to actualize its potential, to master its environment, and to leave its unique imprint upon existence. This will to power manifests in countless ways. In the artist's compulsion to create, the philosopher's relentless pursuit of truth, the scientist's drive to understand, and in every individual's striving for self-mastery and excellence. It is the very essence of life's dynamism, a perpetual striving beyond oneself. From this fertile ground of the will to power emerges another pivotal concept, the Übermensch, or overhuman. This too is often misunderstood, conjuring images of a superhuman tyrant. But for Nietzsche, the Übermensch is not a literal biological evolution, spiritual and psychological ideal, a goal for humanity to strive toward. The Übermensch is the individual who has successfully navigated the crisis of nihilism, who has confronted the meaninglessness of a godless world, and instead of succumbing to despair, has taken on the monumental task creating their own value. They are the self-legislators, the artists of their own lives, who live authentically, embrace suffering as a catalyst for growth, and affirm life in all its terrifying and glorious complexity. The path to becoming an Übermensch is one of radical autonomy and profound self-responsibility. It demands that we shed inherited morality, question conventional wisdom, and bravely sculpt our own ethical framework, one that is aligned with our deepest impulses for growth and self-overcoming. It is a call to courage, to dare to be different, to stand alone if necessary, and to embrace the solitude that comes with forging one's unique destiny. Central to this affirmation of life And a direct antidote to nihilistic resignation is the concept of Amor Fati, the love of one's fate. This is not a passive acceptance of destiny, but an active, joyous embrace of everything that has happened, is happening, and will happen. It means loving not just the triumphs, but also the tragedies, not just the joys, but also the sorrows, not just the successes, but also the failures. For Nietzsche, to truly love one's fate is to recognize that every event, every experience, every moment, no matter how painful, challenging, is an indispensable thread in the tapestry of one's unique existence. It is the ultimate affirmation of life, transforming suffering from a burden into an opportunity for greatness, a crucible which character is forged and strength is discovered. Amor Fati is antithesis of the life-denying impulse of nihilism. It is the ecstatic yes to life in its entirety, without reservation or regret. And finally, to truly test the depth of this affirmation, Nietzsche presents us with the thought experiment of the eternal recurrence of the same. Imagine, he posits, that this life you are living, every single moment, every joy, every sorrow, every thought, every action will recur infinitely, exactly as it is, without alteration. Would this thought fill you with dread, or would you embrace it with exhilaration? The eternal recurrence is not a cosmological theory, but a moral imperative, a profound challenge to live each moment with such intensity, such authenticity, and such affirmation that you would wish for its eternal return. It forces us to ask, am I living a life that I would want to relive countless times? It is the ultimate measure of one's affirmation of life, a powerful tool for self-evaluation, and a constant reminder of the immense responsibility we bear in shaping our own existence. In these concepts, the will to power, the Übermensch, Amor Fati, and the eternal recurrence, Nietzsche offers not a comforting dogma, but a demanding yet liberating philosophy, a blueprint for overcoming the void and forging a life of profound meaning and purpose in a world that has shed its illusion. Having navigated the treacherous waters of nihilism and glimpsed the towering peaks of Nietzsche's philosophy, the crucial question remains: how do we translate these profound ideas into the fabric of our daily lives? How do we, in a world still grappling with the echoes of God's death, actively forge a new meaning, a purpose that resonates with the deepest stirrings of our will to power? Nietzsche's answer is both simple and revolutionary. View your life as a work of art. Just as a sculptor molds clay or a painter applies brushstrokes, so too must we consciously and deliberately shape our existence. Every decision, every action, every thought becomes a stroke on the canvas of our being. This requires not passive acceptance, but active creation, a relentless commitment to self-overcoming and self-expression. It demands discipline, a passionate engagement with our chosen endeavors, and the courage to embrace our unique vision, even if it diverges from the conventional. The meaning of your life is not found, it is made through the continuous, arduous, and exhilarating process of becoming who you truly are. This artistic approach to life also necessitates a radical reevaluation of suffering. In a world that often seeks to eradicate pain at all costs, Nietzsche reminds us that suffering is not merely an unfortunate byproduct of existence, but an intrinsic and often indispensable component of growth. It is through struggle, through hardship, through the confrontation with our own limitations and vulnerabilities that we discover our true strength, refine our character, and deepen our understanding of ourselves and the world. To deny suffering is to deny a fundamental aspect of life itself, and to rob ourselves of the very experiences that can lead to profound self-mastery and a more robust will to power. The artist does not shy away from the difficult line, the challenging colors. They integrate them, transform them, and allow them to contribute to the richness and complexity of the Master. So too must we learn to integrate our suffering, to see it not as an obstacle to happiness, but as a forge in which our spirit is tempered and our capacity for joy is banded. Ultimately, Nietzsche's philosophy is a clarion call to create your own value. In the absence of divinely ordained commandments or universally accepted moral codes, we are thrust into a terrifying yet liberating freedom. This freedom comes with immense responsibility, the responsibility to define what is good, what is noble, what is worthy of pursuit for ourselves. This is not an invitation to moral relativism or hedonism, but to a rigorous, self-imposed ethical framework rooted in the affirmation of life, the pursuit of excellence, and the cultivation of our highest potential. It requires intellectual honesty, a willingness to scrutinize inherited beliefs, and the courage to stand by our conviction even when they are unpopular. To live authentically, to truly overcome nihilism, is to dare to be an individual, to carve out your own path, and to live in accordance with the truth you have discovered and affirmed for yourself. It is to become the author of your own moral universe, a creator of meaning in a world desperately needs it. This is the ultimate act of defiance against the void, the ultimate affirmation of life in the face of indifference. We began our journey in the shadow of nihilism, in the unsettling quiet left by the death of God. We have traversed the landscape of Nietzsche's thought, confronting the abyss of meaninglessness and the profound challenge it poses to our existence. We have seen how nihilism is not merely an intellectual position, but a deep-seated spiritual malady, a denial of life that stems from the collapse of our most cherished certainty. But we have also discovered that for Nietzsche, this crisis is not a dead end, a gateway. Through the concepts of the will to power, the Übermensch, Amor Fati, and the Eternal Recurrence, he has provided us not with easy answers, but with powerful tools for self-creation, for the forging of a new and more profound sense of purpose. This is Nietzsche's enduring legacy, a philosophy not of despair, but of radical hope, a hope rooted not in transcendent promises, but in the immanent potential of humanity itself. He calls upon us to be more than mere creatures of habit, more than passive inheritors dying tradition. He challenges us to become creators, to be the artists of our own lives, to embrace the full spectrum of human experience, from the highest joys to the deepest sorrows, and to affirm it all with a resounding yes. The path he lays out is not an easy one. It demands courage, resilience, and a willingness to question everything we hold dear. But it is a path that leads not to the emptiness of the void, the fullness of lived with purpose and with an unwavering love itself. So, as we return to our own lives, to the challenges and uncertainties of the modern world, let us carry with us Nietzsche's defiant spirit. Let us not flee from the abyss, but rather let us draw from it the strength to build anew. Abracemos a liberdade e a responsabilidade que vem com o fato de sermos os únicos autores de nosso próprio significado. In a world without guarantees, in a universe that offers no preordained purpose, the act of creating value, of forging a life of significance, becomes the most heroic act of all. The meaning of life is not a mystery to be solved, but a masterpiece to be created, and the artist is you.